So first of all, despite the title, this is not a panel about failure. It's a panel about signals and learnings, Go90, Vessel, Vine, Clubhouse, the list is long. Platforms that often had a really great idea that became successful elsewhere. And we have a panel here that's going to help us understand from the inside what were some of the signals that were likely to lead to collapse or massive success. We're going to talk about whether sometimes it was just too early or fundamentally broken. And then we're going to end with, as a creator or a business, how do you navigate these sort of platform cycles for enduring success, regardless of what these platforms do and where they go. So I want to start with too early or too broken, starting with Ivana. We worked together at YouTube, actually back in the day. You left to go to Vessel, which was quite a big hype, a lot of funding, really great people that were from Hulu, right?
Yep.
Got acquired by Verizon.
Yep.
And became Go90. So, and that had a rapid growth, but also a lot of challenges and eventually a collapse. So can you talk us through that journey?
Yeah, I think with any platform, there are three things to ask, right? Do you have a truly differentiated and defensible value prop? Do you have product market fits? Are you actually going to market at the right time? And then number three, is sort of, are you solving a need that's in the market immediately? And the only reason I'm bringing up those three key questions is because I'll give you some examples of where one out of those three questions were not asked at each platform that I was at. But I think what Rabble is doing with Divine is hitting a yes, yes, yes on all three. So with that being said, I was actually an influencer on platforms like Friendster and MySpace. So I've been early to a lot of things. But I really wanted to work on the product side, so I went to a startup that was a pre-MCN called Generate, and from there took the business plan of Generate to YouTube, where we basically scaled that a billion times over in terms of the business plan that we had for Generate. And at YouTube, it was sort of 2010, 2015 for me, but that's Patrick was there.
2006 to 13.
Yeah, so he sort of saw the Google video to YouTube transition, which he'll talk about in a minute. But I think what was interesting is YouTube, before he even got into the quote-unquote creator economy, the creators on YouTube were just called YouTubers. And I went to this startup where Jason Kyler and the founding team of Hulu, so Richard Tom, Lon Lee, like head of product, head of eng, they all started this new billion-dollar valuation startup called Vessel. And what they were trying to do is create monetization and a sustainable ecosystem for creators or YouTubers. And so number one, they were the first to market with a mobile video application that was truly native. They were written up in Mary Meeker's 2015 Internet Trends Report as having the best and pioneering and a mobile-first ad unit called the Motion Poster. And so it had great product, and it had a great team, great people, and they were executing flawlessly, but it didn't have product market fit. And in addition to that, we were offering a pretty interesting business model, which was we were paying for early access for content that YouTubers had on YouTube, but for them to window it on Vessel first.
Right.
So there was a business model. We had the top 100 creators across Vine, YouTube, Instagram, you name it. It just was too early. And it's funny, Rabble and I were talking about this. There was a little bit of UXR, user experience research and market research done, but I would argue not to the degree that I saw when I went to Meta 10 years later, where you have a full data science team, you have a full market research and UXR team that actually does a lot of that groundwork to make sure that you are going to market with a product that has a unique value prop and is meeting unmet needs of the users, and that has a content value prop that is equally compelling, and that you are marketing those two things in the right way in a white space in the market, so market positioning. And I bring that up to say that at Vessel, there wasn't a content value prop. So then I go to Go90, who had just launched Go90 2.0, and what they were doing is trying to take old Intel OnQ set-top box TV hardware and trying to create mobile video software. And for people in the business, impossible. And they were throwing billions of dollars at the problem. And I came in and said, coming right out of YouTube, I'm like, and Vessel, you're never going to solve that problem. You could throw 10,000 more engineers at it, and you could throw $1 billion more at it. You can't make a set-top box hardware device into a mobile video application. So my recommendation was just to acquire Vessel because it had great product. We already were pioneers in mobile video. And all we needed to do was to rebrand Vessel as Go90 3.0. So we had a unique product value prop. But for Go90, they had an embarrassment of riches on content. So they had and Justin knows this, we had $2 billion, we had 30,000 hours of live TV and sports. We had 1,500 hours of microdramas, scripted originals, but people couldn't find it. So when we actually solved the problem of having a unique product value prop, having the best content on the planet, we then had to figure out how to meet the audience needs. So we were solving for Gen Z, so a younger audience, and the way they consume content is not the way that I'm a Gen Xer. They don't do linear content. And even with how they discover content, it's a swipe. It's not a click, or it's not even a double click. So just going into those details of like, let's really embed ourselves with the user and understand how we can create a delightful mobile video experience led us to create the first microdrama format. We produced, and Justin knows this, over 650 original microdrama series. We did every soccer sport on the planet, La Liga, we had NFL, NBA, we had CONCACAF, UEFA. What was interesting is that we were only distributed in the US, and in the US, El Clasico outperformed the Super Bowl every single time. And so we knew that there was something very unique about the mobile-first audience that needed to be solved for. So when we went to market with Go90 3.0, it wasn't just like a singular problem that we were solving for. It was a much more comprehensive solution around product value prop, content value prop, and then coming up with the right go-to-market. And with that, I'm bringing all that up to say we were too early in vertical video for Vessel. We may have been too early with a subscription business model for creators with Vessel. And then with Go90, I think we were way too early on the microdrama trend. And we were potentially too early on the streaming live sports end. But now, in 2025, the only way to compete in streaming services is if you have live sports. Microdramas, as you guys know from this conference, is taking on the market by storm. And the creator economy is here. It's no longer influencers, it's no longer YouTubers, it's creators. Yeah. And every single, and Patrick can talk about this, but every single tool that we fought so hard, like Content ID at Meta, but every creator tool that we needed at a lot of these other platforms that took so long to build, like, are so accessible to anyone at any time in any country today. And with that, I thought it was a good tee-up for Divine because the market timing couldn't be better for what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, so Vine, of course, was this, the original short-form video app was acquired by Twitter before it launched and found like product user fit, but never figured out its market, never figured out the business model. And so Twitter shut it down in the end of 2016 because like the creators wanted to be paid and Twitter didn't make any money from it.
I mean, I have some color to that because I was there during that time at Twitter, and there were three things. Everyone, I think, in the industry thinks that it was all about the monetization piece on what it was, why it was being shut down, but it was really multifaceted around the complexity there. Because there were 40 people working on all of Vine. So it had the product market fit, right? It was doing quite well. But the company itself, when you get acquired by a bigger company, was struggling. And so creators did go to Jack into the team and ask for monetization and investment in the platform. And because Twitter was having an existential crisis, I was on the platform side trying to go after developers as well, what really happened is they saw the value in investing in creator monetization for them, and there was no algorithm for discovery. It was all individuals defining what discovery should be for Vine at the time. But the problem was Twitter decided at that moment that we were going to be a live news organization, that the product was for live and for news, and Vine wasn't live and it wasn't news, and so it just fell on the outside and eventually got shut down, but really it was like not a product investment to get it there, so the creators left.
And the funny thing is, since it got shut down, there have been many attempts to relaunch something like Vine, and I didn't think that Vine was somehow going to be like this thing that would okay, I've figured it out. It was more, about 6 months ago, I kicked off this new nonprofit with Jack Dorsey, and I said, well, just explore stuff. Let's just sort of have this hacker collective, and let's just build stuff. And I was like, how hard could it be to rebuild this? And how hard could it be to get those old videos back? And aren't these AI videos that I'm seeing all the time, it's really annoying. I wonder if I can figure out a way to filter it out. And it was a one-person project. I had Alice help with get some press releases out and promote it, and then we put it out there in the world, and you never know when the timing is going to be right, because there were hundreds of millions of organic impressions and views and people making videos about it, where now 8 years later people are like, oh, we want this thing again.
And it was revisited so many times. So I stayed at Twitter after the acquisition under X for 2 years running marketing, and it was a conversation that was had multiple times, but just in that theme, sometimes you need a smaller team that can really focus on those edge use cases of we don't want AI content in it. That makes more sense than a very large inherited platform that also wants to bring it back, but has so many different other issues that they're dealing with as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing that Vessel showed, I think similarly like Quibi and others, is that, and even Google Video, money doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
Size and scale doesn't solve the problem. And this is where it gets interesting as well. There are a lot of great ideas that actually were building momentum, had a lot of success, and it was the acquirer and the mismatch strategically that killed it. I think MySpace is a great example, which being acquired by News Corp became a distribution channel for News Corp content and lost its global sort of independence and neutrality. Whereas YouTube being acquired by Google, when I was there, allowed it to have literally no competitors in terms of content and be an open space for all content creators. If they were going to sue them, they were going to join them. And many of them, after suing them, joined them and still do today.
Well, I mean, just on that point, what was interesting about when we acquired Vessel at Verizon, we made sure to give Richard Tom and that Hulu team space to do what they do best. So we said, look, we've got a 90-day sprint to get this done, and they got it done. We left them alone. They didn't need the 10,000 people we had in San Jose. It was just a team of literally 15 people. Yeah. And we brought the Go 90 2.0 was, we brought Go 90 between 2.0 and 3.0 from a 1.7 App Store reading to a 4.9, and we grew it from 10,000 MAUs to 27 million in 12 months. Yeah. And so it's it works if you're not forcing the wrong, Fox and MySpace. It's you can't force Fox content to a MySpace audience on a MySpace product.
Same thing when Last.fm was acquired by CBS. It just became this sort of content channel. But
one of the things that it's we are technologists. We're working in design and product and the businesses. So we think about those. I mean, this is the economy stage here. And so, but what we forget is that it is social first. And so the users embody it. They're the thing that give it life. We can build the city, but the people have to live in it. And so, so many times what happens is the people go and they create their lives in these digital platforms, and they want to do something else that isn't what their creators wanted. So Vine's problem in part was the team wanted it to be arty, and they wanted it to be creative, and they wanted it to be highbrow, and the users wanted funny videos.
Yeah.
And so they didn't like each other.
Well, we talked about this, listening to the audience, and I think this is also interesting, where we've seen a lot of great ideas come forward, and then it was a fantastic product, but it ultimately just became a feature on a bigger platform. when Instagram integrated stories. That was actually the beginning of Air coming out of Snap. What other great examples can you guys find where
Clubhouse seemed like an amazing product, and it turned out that it was so built on Twitter that when Twitter Spaces came along, there was no reason to use Clubhouse.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have to
Periscope, same thing, right? Periscope.
Yeah, and often like the playbook for a larger company is to open it up, maybe in a platform play, let creators or developers build different features, and then there's an acquisition there where they can see what they actually want and they want. So the hashtag, the app mention, those are all built by community or by developers integrating into Twitter at the time. And then they become a feature, and that's usually an indicator that it really has the virality they're looking for.
Yeah, two things. One, I thought it was interesting. Well, sometimes it's also just the use case, like adjusting the use case. So Justin TV, back in 2006, he'd be at Digital Hollywood with the camera on his head and, shaking hands with everyone with his GoPro camera. But, that later became Twitch. And once Amazon acquired Twitch, they really found that their niche was gaming. It was live streaming gaming, and they stuck with it. So
but they didn't think it was at the beginning. Like, that wasn't the original idea.
No.
They discovered it.
Yeah, and I was there for 4 years, so I can even dive a little bit into that
Yeah,
too.
that's why I was teeing it up.
So I came at acquisition, and one thing that's really interesting when you talked about letting a company exist on its own, Twitch was allowed to exist on its own with its own identity for the whole time I was there. I think that has changed now. But yes, it wasn't on that. But by the time Amazon acquired them, they knew their core audience was gaming. And one of the things for creators that I think Twitch did so well is they made it like a shared partnership there where the community was actually contributing to the monetization. But monetization features were built in right away, and that's why it was sticky. But we were talking earlier, I think you and I were talking earlier, like you have to look at the behavior of the platform. And with Twitch gaming, no wonder it was working because the actual user behavior, the fans, the viewers were willing to stick with the actual creators for long periods of time on the platform. A lot of people ask, why did Amazon buy Twitch, though? Was it for gaming? I have my own theory. There was one audience that Amazon couldn't penetrate with Prime. It was men between the ages of 18 to 22. What did Twitch offer Amazon? Was it really a gaming play? I would actually argue that it was a Prime integration play.
Like Microsoft
and so they could, now there's Twitch Prime, and if you're subscribing to your subscribers, you become a Twitch Prime member, and now that's an Amazon Prime member, and it was their way to reach an audience. So sometimes you kind of have to think beyond the obvious and look at like, well, it's something as big as Amazon. They have their own gaming, platforms, they have all this. They were going after an audience, and that audience was an audience they could not find with what they were building today.
Let's look at some of the signals between, looking across the market, red flags, green flags, early on, where you get a feeling it's going to work or not work.
You should talk about...
There was a funny one. So in the very early days of Twitter, I remember we initially did it. There was like 12 of us in the office, and we went and we were tweeting about the bus and what we were having for breakfast. And we went to our friends and we said, we have this new social app. It'll send a lot of text messages to your phones. And people were like, that's crazy, I hate it. And like literally everybody I tried to sign up for Twitter said that. And then about 100 people of the, I don't know how many hundreds we tried to sign up, somehow switched and they started using it. And so in those first couple months, there was 100 active users on Twitter, but there was 100,000 tweets delivered to them a month. So the engagement of those super fans was tremendous, even though almost everybody who was shown Twitter in the early days hated it. A small portion of people really loved it. And that was what eventually drove the growth.
Well, you should talk about the signal that you are receiving for Vine, like even as early as last month. Yeah,
so when I launched this sort of divine thing, I was like, I'll relaunch Vine. And I have a friend who runs this website called NeoCities. It's a relaunch of GeoCities. And it's, you can build your own GeoCity site. And no one cares about it. Like Kyle runs this site. He has one customer support person. It's a 2-person company. And it's only interesting to people who are interested in internet nostalgia. And I thought Divine was going to be like that. Oh, cool. You can see the old Vines. You can see them on YouTube right now. It's not hard. And I just thought, well, I'll just throw in the anti-AI thing because it's annoying for myself. And what I didn't realize is that there's been this massive disconnect between everybody in Silicon Valley who is playing with all this AI stuff and playing with this AI gen content and everything else is like, well, this is really, really neat. And the users who keep saying, I hate this. And so I stumbled into this product market fit just because I was like, well, what if we didn't have the AI stuff? And all of a sudden, we had 10,000 people trying to install the beta in 4 hours. 150,000 people went to the website in the first day. And
that's incredible.
Hundreds of millions of people viewed videos about this, and it was entirely organic. It was like, we had discussed maybe trying to do clipping and trying to do some sort of viral marketing campaign. And I was like, oh, that's going to cost like $50,000. I'm not going to spend $50,000 on this project to promote it. And it just, the timing was right. And no one knew the timing was going to be right.
But also you put yourself in the seat of the user, and the closer, whether it's Twitch and being a gamer and putting yourself in the seat of being someone that would want to watch someone else play games for 3 hours, or like thinking about the fact that I don't like AI videos in my feed, or the super user on Twitter that was like, actually I can take this amount because I love the engagement. I think the closer you can get to putting yourself in the consumer, whatever that is, the more likely you're going to build something that has magic to it.
Yeah, I think the fact that you're getting immediate real-time signal from your users immediately, that's product market fit. Mm-hmm. Now it's scale and grow, and then developing an ecosystem. And, and this is where maybe Patrick can chime in, but, beyond sort of getting to PMF, you already have an MVP, but beyond getting to PMF, then it becomes like what you're talking about. Like, how do we get to that Twitch stage pre-Amazon where they found that, for you, your UVP is no AI, Vine. Yep. Okay, we now know to super serve this audience that.
There were so many other things we could have said, but that was the thing. Going back to, you said you were big on Friendster. Friendster had this thing where they thought it was really important to know that friend of friend of friend thing. And so they spent a year and a half building this massively complicated technology to calculate this friend graph thing.
I was like, use this.
It was useless, and they didn't fix the core functionality of the product. And so what happened was the team got obsessed about this one problem.
That didn't need to be solved.
It didn't matter. You could just remove it. No one would care. Twitter had the same thing. Early on in Twitter, when you had the fail whale, the reason the fail whale was happening was because you could go to someone else's profile and see Twitter from their perspective, but it had to calculate who was public and private so that it could do this thing. This is a useless feature. It's kind of cool, but it consumed all of the dev time and everything else. And what helped Twitter survive was someone just said, kill it. Like, let's just kill this complicated technology and do the simple thing that users want.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think a lot of times new platforms come in to try and challenge, some of the incumbents, whether that be YouTube or Instagram, and they think the monetization and rushing out to pay creators early, building monetization tools early are the thing, but in fact they're missing the point, the zeitgeist, that community, the identity of being an Instagrammer, to be a TikToker, to be a YouTuber. And one thing I've learned, both inside at say Instagram, where we are pushing the product team to develop monetization tools to share revenue, Instagram just announced 50 billion run rate on Reels advertising, but they don't share a penny with the creators. But why are the creators still there? Because, as we used to say, you've got to become famous before you become rich. And what TikTok and Instagram have been very good at is helping people, I would say Twitter, become famous, and then they can leverage that visibility, leverage that audience to bring outside brand deals and outside monetization, whereas YouTube has that right blend of both rich and famous. What would you say would be other sort of interesting things to look for, particularly if you are a creator looking to navigate these platforms rising and falling? How would you say you should approach new platforms and old platforms and getting that right balance?
All creators already know this, but not every platform has a native ecosystem that operates very differently. Like, you can't apply the YouTube playbook to Instagram and assume that you're going to get the same result. And even within Facebook, we didn't overlap during our time at Meta, but I ran the team that did the product marketing launch or the go-to-market launch for Facebook and Instagram Reels. And what was interesting is when I first joined in 2019, there was like a ton of investment going into Facebook Watch, but it was basically trying to be YouTube, and Facebook is never going to be YouTube.
And YouTube didn't even succeed at paying for creators to make content.
And it was like they were applying like a lot of the YouTube playbook to Facebook, like let's do Content ID, let's do the creator monetization program that YouTube has,
let's get all of their YouTube features and then somehow magically it'll work.
And magically, like, get YouTube. It wasn't going to work. So
well,
we actually started
to... the feed, right? The feed was the thing, not the creator, not the relationship.
Longer conversation for this 20-minute panel. But then once we shifted into, by 2020, I mean, long-form video was now YouTube. Short-form video was TikTok. We then redirected a lot of those people, resources, time, and investment into launching Reels. Yeah. And that's where we saw product market fit, because it was too late. You know, like the market timing for becoming a YouTube on Facebook was behind them. And we actually had to catch up with where the market was in terms of short form video and making sure that there was a truly delightful product with a 6-second, 10-second, video format. And that's why, I mean, to your point, like sometimes you just got to cut things, like cut your losses and move on to the next thing.
But also, like for creators, just like you're battling an attention economy, there's an attention economy for you as well on how you invest your time. And I think that you have to be more strategic and intentional on how you're using each platform and how it benefits your own objectives, right? So like Mr. Beast, we were talking, is a great example of, he's not showing up on Twitter to grow his audience. He's often banting with his audience and getting feedback on ideas, and then taking those ideas and implementing them where he's investing his business, which is on YouTube. And so for you, one, invest in portability, making sure that whatever audiences you grow on the platforms you pick, you're able to bring with you and have other channels for them to invest in with you. But also, like, be very, very conscious of your own time and where you're putting it on the platforms you're choosing. And more is not more all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like really get good at the ones that you think will benefit your own business objectives.
Yeah, which ones are also the accelerant for your growth, but not the place where you're going to really build your sustainability as a creator or as a business? I mean, a lot of them are basically top of the funnel to drive them somewhere else for consistent monetization and an audience. And what do you think from an engineering?
I mean, that's why something like Substack is so interesting, because they say you own your audience. You own your payment processing, you own subscribers, email addresses, and it's quite tricky now that they're moving into the app experience and in the app purchase, because they're actually going away from that creator-first model as they try and optimize for it. So, like, do you own your relationship to your audience? Do you own that thing? And are you using the big social platforms to drive it to some place that you can control that relationship?
Well, and I think it also depends on genre. So like for Twitch, know, for like Ninja, his primary platform is going to be Twitch, and like maybe his community is on Discord. But that's not going to be the right sort of footprint for everyone, right?
Yeah, and he left for a while, right? And then came back.
Yeah. But my point being that I think for creators in the audience, depending on like if you're in gaming, music, or entertainment, like there's going to be very different playbooks for you across all the different platforms.
Right, and quick fire, what was your favorite platform that existed and collapsed for whatever reason, and what one do you see now that you think has longevity that hasn't yet peaked?
I loved LiveJournal. I felt like it had a really nice combination of public and private and community creations and stuff like that.
Yeah. And what was your favorite? Obviously, Vine, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Vine. We were all waiting for it to come back, so now I feel so lucky that I'm with the person trying to shepherd it. But yeah, I was a big Vine user. I loved it.
One format, that, I mean, I've seen it resurrected in different ways, but back to the early 2000s, hot or not? Like, do you remember that? It was just like very simple, hot or not.
Well, that became
Twitter's original hosting was in the hot or not cage.
Apps.
They gave it to us for free.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think it's important to recognize they will rise, they will fall. If you're a creator in a business, or I mean, I'm investing in creator businesses. There are some where it's just a clear, sustainable growth story, like YouTube. Even I would say Substack now. A lot of the creators are very investable because of sustained growth. Other ones are fantastic to build your profile, ride the wave. But does it match the social graph? Do they listen to creators? And does it have the tech and the global scale to really kind of hit peak? So. Hope you enjoyed this chat. Thank you to the panelists.
Thank
Let's give them a
you.
round of applause.
Thanks to
Have
our
a fantastic
moderator.
day.
Yeah.